Hey everyone, and welcome back. I am so excited because today we are going to be doing one of my favorite things. We are going to be taking the things that maybe scare us a little bit and turning them into things that are not so scary. Oh yes, I am talking about math. We are going to be doing some serious math problems later, but nothing to get too worried about because we're here to learn and grow. And if we don't know something, that's fine. Like I said, we're learning, we're growing, we're doing our best. So, before we jump into our number a day challenge, let's talk about our riddle. So, our riddle today I think is a really silly and goofy one. I'm really excited about it, and I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. Our riddle today is, where do cows go on vacation? I don't know. You guys will just have to figure it out. And once you got it up there in that noggin, at the end of our video, after we finish reading our George's Marvelous Medicine, our chapter book, we will figure out the answer to our riddle together. So make sure to stick around. But now it's time for our number a day challenge, guys. I hope you guys are ready because we are back in action with our math challenge. Oh yes, you know what I'm talking about. I am talking about our number a day challenge. And this time we're going back, we're focusing on our good and reliable addition and subtraction method. So I've got my erasable marker, I've got my erasable board, let's get going. So the first step is to think of a random 3-digit number. So I'm thinking 342. Boom. That's the one came to my brain. That's the one we're going to do math with. And I encourage you guys to take that same approach. Just whatever random numbers pop into your brain, go from there. Make it fun. Make it crazy. That's how we learn more. We make it more relatable, more fun. So, 342. Now, our first step, we are going to subtract. So, I've got my 342. We are going to subtract 17. So, I'm going to put it. We're going to remember to line it up with our place values. So that means our ones value going under the ones, tens going under the tens, and hundreds, if we've got hundreds, is going under the hundreds. But most of the time when we do our math challenge, we don't have to worry about the 100 because they take care of themselves. So we know 3 is just going to kind of go right down. But let's focus on what we got in front of us. So we know 2 minus 7. How does that work? Well, we're going to have to go in, we're going to have to borrow, right? So that 4 is going to become a 3, and that 2 is going to become a 12. So that means we are doing 12 minus 7, not 2, because we had to borrow. So 12 minus 7. Who knows the answer? The answer is 5. Good job. Next we have 3 minus 1. Who knows what that's going to be? Let's use our fingers. So 3 minus 1. Do you think the answer is 2? Because you'd be right. And then all we do is bring down our hundredths place, and we have 325 now. Next, we subtract 25. So if you guys are pretty quick with recognizing that, 25. We're subtracting 25. So does that mean we're going to have 300? I don't know. Let's find out, but you guys are on the right track. So, just because we've got to go through the math, let's make sure we're right. Lining everything up like we have, right? Ones and tens, they're in their correct spots. Now, for my friends who caught that we have 125 and we are subtracting 25, and we're probably going to have 300, you are some smart cookies because you are completely correct. Because what? 5 minus 5 equals 0. 2 minus 2 equals 0, and 3 just hangs out by themselves. So we've got 300. All right. From 300, we are going to add 36. Now, if you guys know what's going on, you know that when you add a 0 plus anything, it's just going to be itself, because we're literally saying, here, have nothing. Think of it that way. When someone says, oh, we're adding 0, we are adding absolutely nothing. Think of it as a friend saying, hey, do you want to add 0 erasers to your eraser collection? They hold out a hand and there's absolutely nothing in it. That's a good way to think of it. So we are going to keep our 6 and our 3 the same, meaning we are going to have 336. Good job, guys. So who remembers what the next step is? So we've got 336. Next, what do we do? What do we do? How do we make it keep going? What are we learning next? We are going to be learning how to do our odd and even numbers. So we're going to take 336 and we are going to find the next odd and even numbers. All right. So I've gone ahead, I've labeled them on the board. O is for odd, E is for even. That means we've got to place the next numbers that come after 336 in those places. So what comes after 336? 337. Now, is 7 an even or odd number? It's odd, so that means we will write it under odd. Now, what do we think the next even number is going to be? Do we think it's going to be 338? Because you're right. All right. Now, I'm going to challenge you guys. I don't want you guys to think, what's this one going to be? Because we can pick up on the pattern. I think you guys know what it's going to be. I want you to think ahead to what our next even number is going to be. So, we are going to come back to this one. We are going to go to our next even because I want to challenge you guys a bit. I want to see what's going on. What do we think is going to be our next number? Did you just say 400? No, you guys are silly. That wouldn't be right. It would be 340. Good job, guys. Ooh, oh my goodness. Got a little bit of a accident here. I completely smudged it on my finger. As you can see, I got a bit of orange. So we've got 340. That means let's take a step back. What do we think that our odd number between these two is going to be? What do we think it is? Good job. We're going to take one away from 340 and we've got 339. Can't get anything past you guys. All right, we just have 2 more left. We've got one odd and one even. What do we think is going to happen next? Are you saying 341 and then 342? Because you'd be completely correct. All right, let me write them down for you guys. 341, 342. All right, that is it, guys. This is our Math a Day challenge, our number a day challenge, because guess what? Math doesn't have to be scary. We just have to become more familiar with it. Because I know when I was younger, it was just overwhelming because it didn't seem to make sense at all. But when I broke it down and I did a little bit every day, it became a little less scary. So I hope that's what happens with you, and I hope this helps just a little bit. So now that we've done our math, let's jump right into our positive action. Today, our positive action or positive tip is going to focus in on feelings. So, what are feelings? Feelings are things everyone has. Everyone, every single person. They've got good feelings and bad feelings. Just like us, we have good feelings and bad feelings too. We are no different. We experience the great things like joy, excitement, happiness, laughing. I think that's a feeling. I don't know about, would that be humor? Humor feeling? Joy? I guess that would fall under joy. I don't know. I really like laughing. I think that is the biggest, bestest feeling. But on the top of that, you know, we've got the good stuff. We've also got the bad stuff. We've got things like fear, anger, sadness, grief. Those things kind of balance each other out, right? And when we're not aware of how these emotions and these feelings are bouncing around in our head or interacting with our thoughts, which we talked about before, so make sure to go check that out, we're not setting up ourselves for success, right? We're kind of saying, all right, brain, figure it out on your own. I'm not going to think about it. And we would never do that to a friend, right? We would never leave a friend in a kind of sketchy situation and go, well, you got to figure it out. Figure it out. I'm just not going to do anything. We would never do that. So why would we do that to our best friend, our brain, right? We've got to have those conversations. We've got to talk about it. And yes, I know talking about feelings and, going through those thoughts, it's hard, it's difficult, and it's a skill, but it's a skill we need to work on and grow in, because the better we become at becoming more self-aware and recognizing feelings and thoughts and patterns in our head, the more ready we are to face the world, the more ready we are to put our best foot forward and grow to become the best version of ourselves. It's not all going to happen overnight where we are just the best Emma in the world. No, we work on it. It takes time. So give yourself time, give yourself grace, and continue to work on it. All right. So now that we've talked just a little bit about feelings, let's move on to our book. Oh, hey guys. Sorry, I was just catching up on this wacky book. Oh yes, I'm talking about George's Marvelous Medicine, because guys, things are absolutely, without a doubt, crazy in this book. Grandma is through the roof. The hens are big. All of the farm animals are now giant. Mom and Dad aren't upset at George. They're like, all right. And they're not upset that Grandma is like poking a hole through the roof. This book just keeps getting crazier, and every day I can't wait to read it, and I hope you guys are feeling the same way. So let's jump right in, because they just pulled Grandma out with the crane, and all the animals are still giant. You heard me correctly. They are still massive giant animals roaming around this farm. So let's jump back in and let's see what craziness happens next. In a way, the medicine had done Grandma good. It had not made her any less grumpy or bad-tempered, but it seemed to have cured all her aches and pains, and she was suddenly as frisky as a ferret. As soon as the crane had lowered her onto the ground, she ran over to George's huge pony, Jack Frost, and jumped onto his back. The ancient old hag, who was now as tall as the house, then galloped about the farm on the gigantic pony, jumping over trees and sheds and shouting, "Out of my way! Clear the decks! Stand back at all cost, you miserable midgets, or I'll trample you to death." And other silly things like that. Oh my gosh, Grandma is crazy. But because Grandma was much too tall to get back in the house, she had to sleep that night in the hay barn with the mice and the rats. All right, new chapter, Mr. Cranky's Great Idea. The next day, George's father came to breakfast in a state of greater excitement than ever. "I've been awake all night thinking about it," he cried. "About what, Dad?" George asked him. "About your marvelous medicine, of course. We can't stop now, my boy. We must start making more of it. At once. More and more and more." The giant saucepan had already been completely emptied the day before, because there had been so many sheep and pigs and cows and bullocks to be dosed. "But why do we need more, Dad?" George asked. "We've done all our own animals, and we even made Grandma feel as frisky as a ferret, even though she does have to sleep in the barn." "My dear boy," cried Mr. Cranky, "we need barrels and barrels of it, tons and tons. Then we can sell it to every farmer in the world, so that all of them can have giant animals. We will build a marvelous medicine factory and sell the stuff in bottles at £5 a time. We will become rich, and you will become famous." "But wait a minute, Dad," George said. "There is no waiting," cried Mr. Cranky, working himself up so much that he put butter on his coffee and milk on his toast. "Don't you understand what a tremendous invention of yours is going to do to the world? Nobody will ever go hungry again." "Why won't they?" asked George. "Because one giant cow will give 50 buckets of milk a day," cried Mr. Cranky, waving his arms. "One giant chicken will make 100 fried chicken dinners, and one giant pig will make 1,000 pork chops. It's tremendous, my dear boy. It's fantastic. It'll change the world." "But wait a minute, Dad," George said again. "Don't keep saying, 'wait a minute,'" Mr. Cranky responded. "There isn't a minute to wait. We need to get cracking at once." "Do calm down, my dear," Miss Cranky said from the other end of the table, "and stop putting marmalade on your cornflakes." "The heck with my cornflakes," cried Mr. Cranky, leaping from his chair. "Come on, George, let's get going. And the first thing we're going to do is make one more saucepan as a tester." "But, Dad," said little George, "the trouble is—" "There won't be any trouble, my boy," cried Mr. Cranky. "How can you possibly have any trouble? All you've got to do is put the same stuff in the saucepan as you did yesterday. And while you're doing it, I'll write down each and every item. And that's how we'll get the magic recipe." "But Dad," George said, "please listen to me." "Why don't you listen to him?" Mrs. Cranky said. "The boy's trying to tell you something." But Mr. Cranky was too excited to listen to anyone except for himself. "And then," he cried, "when the new mixture is ready, we'll test it out on the old hen, just to make sure we've got it absolutely right. And right after that, we'll shout hooray and build a giant factory." "But Dad—" "Come on then. What is it you want to say?" "I can't possibly remember all the hundreds of things I put into the saucepan to make the medicine," George said. "Oh no, that is where we're gonna put our bookmark in for today, and we will see what happens next." I hope Mr. Cranky doesn't get too upset with George, because George is just doing his best. And I also think he understands that this medicine should not be just given out, should not just be sold, because it is some crazy stuff, am I right? Giant animals, a giant grandma. That's pretty crazy. All right, now before we say our goodbyes, let's talk about our riddle. Our riddle today was a real fun one, a real silly, goofy one, my favorite. So, our riddle was, where do cows go on vacation? Did you guess it? I was thinking at first, I said, maybe the moon? But no. What about Moo York? Get it? Moo York? I thought that one was really funny and silly. Just the perfect type of riddle. So, now that we have figured out our riddle together, it's time to say our goodbyes. Thank you guys so much for watching.